Hi, Mary Jo.
Hi, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I don't know why my camera's not showing, but I'm here.
I hear you.
Where my face is, though. I am turning on the Zoom to record just so everybody knows. Here we go. There we are. Hello, everybody.
There we go. Hi.
I don't know if you're going to start this work session off, Ron, or if Jeremy is doing.
Let's just wait. I don't think everyone from council's here quite yet.
No.
Okay, let's see. There's Kathy, Kevin. There's Mary.
4, 5, 6.
I don't see Meg.
Meg's not here yet.
Yep, Andy and Sue. Okay, very good. Yeah, once we're all here, Jeremy, you can just take the.
Mary Jo, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
My internet is teetering in and out, so I can't hear you at all.
Oh, really? Maybe mine quiet for anybody else?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, there's Meg. All right, it's 6 o'clock. I believe everyone on council is here. Let me just double check one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yep, everyone's here. So, Jeremy, if you're gonna take things, go right ahead, sir.
I'm unsure if Jeremy can hear us. This is Len Kendall from McBride Dale Clarion. I'm waiting for Greg Dale. He should be here to kick us off. He said he would be here. Do you mind if we give him a minute or so?
Not at all.
Thank you.
Did you hear all that, Jeremy?
I'm going to call him. Actually, you know what? I don't know if I even have.
I still can't hear.
Okay.
Sorry.
Len said that, I'm sorry, what's the other gentleman's name? Is going to be joining soon. So he asked us to give him a moment.
Hey, Jeremy.
Greg Dale.
Thank you.
Mary Jo, I'm going to try to log back on another computer.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. We're still waiting for the other person from the group.
waiting for Jeremy now at this point.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. I had a little technical problem getting on here, but I'm here.
Jeremy is also having some problems.
Yeah.
Hi, Greg. This is Mayor Gallagher. I think you could get started just for the sake of time. All the council members understand what our objective is.
Sure. Jeremy just came in also. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So, hello, everyone. My name is Greg Dale with McBride Dale Clarion. We have been fortunate enough to be engaged by the city to do the zoning code update. I'm actually filling in for Liz Fields, who is our project manager on this. Liz is on vacation right now, so I'm standing in. So what I'll do, I want to just introduce MDC, and then I'm going to let Len Kendall, who will be working with Liz, do the bulk of the presentation. So what we'd like to do is to do an overview of the process that we're proposing to follow. Now, I understand that almost all of you, and I guess all of you except for one, were actually at the kickoff meeting a week or so ago. So what we propose to do is to try to strike a balance between not belaboring what you've already heard, but since this is a council meeting and you may have members of the public watching, we thought it would be worth doing. So we'll do that. And then at the end, Mayor, what we'd like to do is to open it up to any questions that you all have, but recognizing that we're just at the beginning of this process. So we'd appreciate any input you have, but we don't have a lot of substance to go over with you in terms of any work that we've done yet. So anyway, McBride Dale Clarion, as you can see here, we're a planning and zoning consulting firm in Ohio. My partner and I, Ann McBride, founded it over 20 years ago. You can see the kind of folks that we have. But basically, we do a mix of planning and zoning work for both the public and the private sector. So we have folks in our office who write zoning codes, and we have folks in our office who help property owners navigate zoning codes. So we have both sides of those. And we can tell you more about the experience that we've had if you'd like to hear about that. So Len, why don't you go on to the next one? So again, I think most of you have met Liz and Len from the previous meeting. I'll be serving in a principal role here as kind of just advisor as needed, but Liz Fields will be the project manager working with Len. Okay, go ahead, Len. So that's who we are. You all went through a selection process. The city has our full set of our qualifications. We'd be happy to share more of that if you would like, but just in the interest of time, and I know you have at most a half an hour set aside, unless you want to go further for this. We'll try to keep it brief. So I'm going to ask Len to jump in at this point and kind of walk you through the process that we're proposing to follow, kind of starting, especially for any citizens watching from home, why you're doing this, why we understand you're doing this now in the relationship in particular to your comprehensive plan or master plan. So Len, why don't you take that over and I'll go on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that, and it's good to see all you familiar faces that Liz and I met last week. So again, why now? As you know, the city's current code was adopted in 1992, almost 30 years ago, over time, it's gone through some piecemeal updates to address specific items in that code that no longer maybe didn't pertain to the city anymore or for another reason. Very recently, the city went through a visioning process and recently adopted their 2020 master plan earlier this year in 2021. Revisions to the current zoning regulations are needed now in order to implement the vision and recommendations of that plan, as the plan set forward a vision with action items and goals that the current code just in some instances doesn't even have any regulations in it, or the regulations in it are not as strong as they could be in order to implement the vision of that master plan. And then lastly, our zoning code update will include regulations and processes for city residents, staff, and developers to easily and understand and apply to their property that they own within the city of Brooklyn. As Greg mentioned, right now we are in the very beginning of this process, the initiation phase. Like I said, it's great to getting to know you all, and great to get a little bit of information from the public last week at our public meeting, as well as our meeting with our advisory committee. The next step in this code is going to be a code diagnosis and outline, where we provide the city a draft of what the outline of the code update is going to include, including direction, and we're really going to look at the code as it is today and really dive into it and make decisions on where we think the code could be. We will give that diagnosis back to the city for review by staff and as well by the public. And we do this because we don't want to start drafting and writing the zoning code before we get full go ahead from the public and from the city staff. We don't want to double our efforts writing the same code and rewriting it. After the diagnosis gets the thumbs up, we're going to go to draft the regulations, and we do that in little chunks called modules. The first one will be zoning districts and use regulations. The second one, development and design standards. The third, administration, general provisions and review procedures. And lastly, we do look at the definitions of all the different terms in the zoning code, as well as we leave some room for wrapping up any unfinished modules or sections that we needed to double back on, in this case at module 4, which will then lead to adoption and the final production of the code. Obviously here in Brooklyn, it will go to referendum and a vote of the residents. Throughout the project, we will be having online information and engagement for the residents of the city in order to get more data and understand what they want in their zoning code. We started that last week with our public meeting, and we had a little handout that we worked with the residents to gather some of that information. We will have recorded video presentations. We will do in-person and virtual public meetings, steering committee meetings, as well as stakeholder interviews. The update will include a modern look and organization, updated definitions, updated uses and use standards. It will include lighting, parking, design, sustainability, and landscaping regulations. The current code has some of those, maybe not all of them. As I mentioned before, in some instances, the regulations are not as strong as they could be. Updated sign regulations are going to be included, as well as to streamline the review and approval processes, and as mentioned in the beginning, to implement the master plan. So here we have two maps of the city. The one on the left is the future land use map that is located in the 2020 Brooklyn Master Plan. And to the right, we have the current zoning map of the city of Brooklyn. We color coded ours a little bit different than I believe Jeremy has color coded in the city. But it's essentially just to show you the different areas where the future land use map and the zoning map differ. As you can see, this area in the southeast corner, we have currently it's general business. And what is in the future land use map is a mixed use commercial district, which includes commercial as well as potentially adding in townhomes or duplex into these commercial areas. There's another mixed use area along Biddulph Road where Biddulph Plaza is, as well as along Memphis and Ridge Road and their intersection up in a Brooklyn, city of Brooklyn civic area where the city hall is, and the new city hall will be located as well. And then the biggest thing that we noticed from this plan and that we got from the residents while we were up there was their love for the open space and the green space in the city. That is why on this zoning district, on the zoning map, you'll see we added in these green colors. These green colors represent the open space and the green space in the city. That was mentioned on the future land use map. And this will become its own zoning district that will allow parks and civic buildings and community buildings in order to make sure that the green spaces are stayed and protected in the city of Brooklyn. So from our kickoff meeting takeaways, we found that Brooklyn residents are concerned about primarily preservation of the city's parkland. We also heard concerns about additional multifamily development, compatibility of uses and development, as well as transparency during the update process, which we will be making sure that everything we do is transparent through the public and everything along the way. Brooklyn residents want more flexibility in constructing residential accessory structures and pools. As I mentioned, a lot of these single family houses in the city are very small, and some of the setbacks in the zoning code existing really makes it difficult for residents to add, per se, a swimming pool or a shed sometimes in their property with very strict setbacks. And we've seen a lot of variance applications, dimensional variances come to the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, over the last 5 years. Another thing that they would like is senior housing options that blend in with the community. And they want Brooklyn to be a place for young families, as well as for developments to be held to a high standard of quality to represent Brooklyn in the best way, especially in their commercial development. And now I'll hand it back to Greg for a discussion and questions, if there are any.
Thank you, Lynn. So, Mayor and Council, what Lynn was just describing to you was what we heard in that initial outreach, and there will be other outreaches, but that were just some of the ideas that came up, some of the thoughts. Ultimately, you all, as the elected officials, are the policymakers and the folks who will ultimately adopt some version of the zoning code. So, I understand that your role is also to listen to residents, but what we're interested in hearing from you all is, first of all, any questions that you have about the process and how we're proposing to accomplish this. But we'd be especially interested in hearing your take either on what Lynn just said in terms of what we heard from those meetings, but I'm also interested in knowing, just understanding, from your perspective, what you would like to see come out of this code update, what you think the most pressing issues are. And frankly, if we just said something that we thought we heard that you think is not an accurate reflection of what the citizenry is interested in, we'd like to hear that too. So, Mayor, I don't know if you want to open this up to questions as a whole, or go around, or how you want to do that, but we're here to answer any questions, or try to answer any questions that you have, and in particular, listen to what you have to say, and we'll be taking notes on that.
I'll let Ron take over from here.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Ron Van Kirk, I'm the council president. Thank you for being on with us tonight. I'll open up to council for any questions you guys have. Just one second. I did have a question on one of the slides. You said you guys were going to be one extra piece that you haven't started yet, and that was doing stakeholder interviews. Who do you anticipate interviewing in regards to other stakeholders besides the residents of our city?
So let me try to answer that from a typical perspective, and then maybe Jeremy can expand on that. So when we start this process and we do stakeholder interviewers, frankly, we like to hear from a cross-section of people in the community. So that might be residents. In particular, I think when it relates to a zoning code, zoning code is a law. I mean, it is a complicated law, and unlike a plan, which is an aspirational document, it is a set of regulations. So one of the things that we like to do in the stakeholder interviews is talk in particular to the people that use the code a lot. And that might be the city staff that administer the code. It might be planning commission members or council members who are particularly interested in the code. But it would also, we would want it to include people outside city government that use the code. And that might be civil engineers who do a lot of zoning work. You may have some land use attorneys that are regular representatives of applicants with the code. Developers, real estate developers. So folks who are in the trenches in terms of the nuts and bolts. So it's really, the proverbial cross-section of the community with a particular focus on the people who use the code on a regular basis. Very good. Thank you.
All right. And yeah, I was at mostly that previous meeting, and I think you guys summed up pretty well the concerns that the residents, at least at that meeting, had. Anyone else on council have any questions they'd like to ask either Greg or I'm sorry, that other name slips my mind. Go ahead, Mrs. Grodick.
Lynn.
Len, that's right. I knew it started with an L. I didn't want to say the wrong name.
I have a question just for clarification, Len, and then possibly a statement to say about it. On the slide that it said that there were some concerns about multifamily. Did you pick up from the meeting that some of the residents were opposed to multifamily?
I think there was a few people who stated pretty clearly that they didn't want to see multifamily. I think there, based on the information that we collected, it is a cross section. Some people said, multifamily is okay if it's done in the right way. And that's how zoning can handle multifamily, whether it's design guidelines or architectural standards. So I would say it was a bit of based on the written information we got, which we will get that data out. We haven't gone through all of it yet in a diagnostic way, but it was I think it was a good mix of density is a tough one to really get a hold of in 4 options. There's a lot of different standards from duplex all the way to large building, but I think there was a decent amount of people there who were okay with some multifamily, and there was some people there who didn't take to it that much.
And if I could just expand on that before you make your statement. I'll just talk. I wasn't at the meeting, but just from the perspective of somebody who's worked with communities across the country, multifamily is a difficult issue for many communities. I think we all understand the need for a certain diversity in housing so that we can meet the needs of the community, and yet there's no question that multifamily raises concerns on some people. But what Lynn said is our experience is typically it depends on how it's done kind of a question, right? The other thing I want to say in particular for citizens who might be listening at home, we're not out there putting these things forward as something that you should be doing. Our job as the code drafters is to try to implement your plan as much as possible. And as you all know, your plan does have policies in there about encouraging other kinds of housing. So we appreciate the sensitivity of the issue, but that is one of the charges that's in the master plan that we'll be looking at. So.
And that was my first part, because I was part of that master plan steering committee, was that we did feel pretty passionate about having some diverse housing here. And then my second statement is, I think part of alludes to what Greg says. I think a lot of people equal multifamily with rental. And I know that is something that a lot of people think we have plenty of here in Brooklyn. So I'm just like thinking that when we make presentations, I know, our first had the duplexes and the townhouses, and then the 3 to 4 or the 10 units, and then your typical high rise. And I think probably the bulk of the residents would say we don't want to see another high rise here. We may not even want to see that 10 unit type of thing that we have up at the terraces up on Bidoff. But I think in thinking of diverse housing, when we think more of things that can be multifamily but yet still owner driven, like in a condo or a townhouse, I think that's where we might see a difference in what the residents are talking about.
Yeah, and it's difficult to get at the ownership issue through zoning directly, but what you can deal with in zoning is just to plant the seed to think about this as we go forward. We're not going to solve this here, but height limits, density in terms of dwelling units per acre, relationship of buildings to street, materials and architecture of buildings, setbacks, how parking is handling, landscaping and design. All those things are regulatory tools that we could in place so that if ultimately the message from the city is, yes, we want certain kinds of multifamily or certain kinds of attached housing, but only under these conditions, then our job is to help translate that into the zoning language that helps you achieve that.
Thanks.
Ron, may I be recognized?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Just to add a little bit to what Sue mentioned is I do think that the majority of residents are interested in more diverse housing. We have people who are getting older who either want to downsize or want to go in maintenance free. And then we also want to be able to attract young people with the type of housing that they're interested in. I think there's a couple concerns with apartments. I think the first is I really don't think we want a high rise here in our community. We do have one, but we have some apartments in our community, and some are just older, and there are issues that go along with that, and then we have some that really aren't so nice. So I think when people hear apartments, they think more of the same. And you're exactly right, Greg, that we need to make sure that through this zoning code process, we have the type of multifamily housing that is really going to be high quality, and it's what we want to have here in our community. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with an apartment if it's the right size and the right density in the right location, and that it's not a high rise. A lot of people do start out in apartments. So anyways, and would this be the appropriate time for me to run through my list, or are we just talking about questions? Okay, so I'm just going to run through my list, and some of them clearly are already on your list. The signs, I think the mayor mentioned it at the public meeting. I agree that the signs in our community, a lot of them are too tall. We do need mixed use, more green space for our businesses, and also where possible, trying to pull the businesses maybe closer to the street and have the parking in the back, either architectural or design standards that people have to meet. I also had on my list a specific district for our parks and green space. And it sounds like you're already going to take a look at the most common variances that are granted either in our commercial districts or our residential to see how can we address those issues. Definitely stricter language that makes the intent more clear, language that's more user-friendly, because some of our language, quite frankly, can be confusing. I think we're fortunate with how the city was initially designed, with the businesses on the perimeter and the residential in the center. But I would like to see if we can take a look at, as businesses have been built and expanded here in our community, I'd like to see if there's a way that we can have a greater buffer where we do have residents who buffer or who are right next to these commercial districts. I know nothing can be done, with our existing conditions, but anything certainly that would be new. A list of prohibited uses, things that we don't want to see in our city. So it's right out there up front that everyone knows about it. And I know when communities do this, they generally have a caveat that if something changes, for example, with state or federal laws or court cases, that of course, we wouldn't be able to continue that. But I would like to see us have a list of prohibited uses. Clearly, it's going to reflect best practices. And I think that was everything on my list.
That's a heck of a good list. Two questions. You mentioned about language, clarifying intent. With what can you expand a little bit on what you're talking about there?
Meaning, it's just, I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 5 years, and just sometimes, like, if we really don't want something, or like, what is the intent of the language that's in there?
Okay.
I don't know if you've read through our zoning code, but it's very outdated. And sometimes you'll see something addressed in one area, but then maybe it's kind of alluded to in another area. And I just think overall, it just needs to be in much clearer language. And when I say intent is what do we intend this to mean?
Okay. No, that's helpful. And that also relates maybe to my second question, and that is the idea of prohibited uses. That's frankly a little bit challenging to do. We typically try to avoid that because one of the questions that it begs is, all right, if you list permitted uses and you list prohibited uses, what about this use, which you didn't think about? So there's a challenge with that. But I think let us work with you on that, because part of the problem is you're dealing with a list of obsolete uses. So we can give you a much better list of uses with definitions for those uses. And you can always place conditions on uses. Now, I'm not talking about conditional uses necessarily, but the conditions that you place on uses, which I think can get you to where you want to be. But keep that idea of prohibited uses kind of on the margin, and we can come back to it when we get to that, and you see some of the examples of uses that we can put out there for you to think about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else on council have any questions or comments for our partners? Okay. All right, Greg, just one thing to maybe keep in mind, and Len as well, as we get a little bit further. I think it helps whenever people are able to visualize things as opposed to just hearing it in a meeting. Like, for example, the parks situation. I know you, Len and Liz addressed that immediately at that town meeting, and able to show that map with the green areas on it, I think went a long way to kind of stemming the questions about, what we're going to do with the parks. When it comes to the multifamily units, if we're able to visualize something, I know it's not going to happen right now, and it may not even be in your purview to do this, but as we're kind of presenting this to the residents, to kind of go along with this, as Pucci said, if we're able to kind of show them, okay, this is what we're talking about when we talk about multi-use. We're not talking about, a 12-story apartment building. We're more so talking about, a 2-story or 3-story townhome, or like a multi-use development like you would see in Crocker Park or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and for those of you who were at the previous meeting, there was kind of a start of that with the little survey that we used that showed those kinds of photographs. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and as we go forward into this, we'll continue that idea that the proverbial picture's worth 1,000 words. And we can also carry that forward to some extent into the zoning code with illustrations that illustrate those concepts. But in particular, and I hear you. I mean, I get the message. The multifamily is a challenging issue. We know that. It is virtually everywhere we work, and so much of it does depend on. It depends on what it looks like, kind of a thing. And I think we kind of have to be honest with ourselves here, and that is, you look at the last 50 years worth of experience with apartments in our country, and there's probably pretty good reason for people to be concerned about that issue. But hopefully through this process and using visuals, as you suggest, we can be clear what we're talking about here and what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. I just think it would go a long way with a lot of the residents to really fully understand exactly what the intent is here. So,
right.
Anyone else on council have any comments or questions for Len or Greg?
I have one question for clarification, actually, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Ms. Pucci, you mentioned a greater buffer next to commercial districts. I'm that kind of confused. Would you like a larger buffer between housing and commercial, or a smaller, more mixed use, kind of compatible buffer, I guess?
So what I was mentioning was just generally when you have that line between commercial and residential, if we could have more space, and this is just something to consider, if there's a way just to have more space between the commercial district and the residents that live like right along that border it basically. I understand in mixed use, that's a whole different
Right.
area, that a mixed use, typically your residential is going to be more dense. It's going to be in with, typically it's retail or maybe some offices, something like that. So I think that's completely different. I was just referring to, you know, if there were things to come up where we would have, I guess, traditional residential anywhere, that we would be able to get a larger buffer between that and a commercial district, let's say.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Jeremy, are you back with us, or are you still off?
No, I'm back.
All right,
I joined about 2/3 of the way through. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Is there anything else you needed to add?
No, just to appreciate the opportunity and the feedback, and it's really useful to Greg and Lynn as they pull this together with what they heard from the public, and we move forward in the process. So thank you.
Okay. All right, Mayor, is there anything else you needed to add before we part ways with McBride Clarion?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Len. Appreciate it. And
Thank you all.
we'll be in touch very, very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, Mayor, if you want to go and see if you want to go ahead and turn it over, I believe Robin's on from Bowen. So, Mayor.
Sure. Robin and Alan and Jason are on. They're going to do some updates on some exterior and some brief updates on interior. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm glad to be here before you again. It's been about 2 weeks this time. I apologize in advance. I feel great, but I sound like I've been smoking a couple packs a day for 30 of my 37 years. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll start with an update on the exterior. And since it's been a little while, we just wanted to give you a quick kind of refresh on what we had been talking about for the exterior materials of the building. You've got on the east facade, we've got a large amount of curtain wall. It'll have a little bit of reflections to it, similar to what we see in this image here, as well as 3 types of masonry. So some dark Roman brick, some mid-tone, tan brick, and then a white cast stone. And then the metals around the overhangs along the front and all around the building will be kind of a warm gray brown with accents of clear anodized wood and curtain wall mullions and window framing. So the last time we spoke, we showed you these images of a building with the City Hall highlighted with a white box and these asymmetrical windows. And, we heard you and your comments, the rhythm, the asymmetry. You could suggest there may be kind of a different direction. So we came back and we did some intensive thinking about what this building really wanted to be here, especially facing Memphis, your main thoroughfare through the city, as well as facing the main entrance to the site and the campus. So this is where we have transitioned. And really what it is a new treatment of this south facade and southeast corner. We reviewed this with the mayor and police last week and received some positive feedback. You'll see there are still elements here that I think everyone has really gravitated towards, this pronounced kind of overhang, the framed entryway into City Hall of the new building. And so we've taken those elements into the south facade. So turning the corner, this facade is what you'll see along Memphis as you're driving by the building. So very prominent, stately, vertical windows, adding some gravity to this corner. And so we still have our plaza out in front, the connectivity to the community room here on the corner. And there's still light and glass here in the mayor's suite, as well as the rest of the city hall functions. And then this is looking straight on along Memphis. So you can see we have these tall windows are framed with some pronounced frames to really give them some gravity, some stateliness. And those frames are continued around the building at the other windows. We transitioned from a cast stone to a lighter brick. And you'll see we've taken the dark brown brick and created a base around the building to really ground it and bring it into the site. So I'll take a brief pause if there's any questions or comments.
I like it. That's my comment.
May I be recognized?
Yes, of course, sorry.
I also like it. I think this is much better. This looks much better than the initial with the smaller, more narrow windows. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I'm glad you like it. I'm glad it feels like what you want your city center to be.
Anyone else? All right, Robin, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll move interior. So I'll start this with some interior images. Now these images are not fully rendered yet, but we'll start at the beginning. We wanted to give you an idea of the main public spaces within the building. So this, if you walked into the lobby and turned to your left, this is the stair, the monumental stair that takes you up to the second floor. This is the reception desk. You can see the entrance to the community room over here. So it's very kind of open and inviting and directional. You get a sense of where you need to go once you move into the building. So if you're standing at the main door and you turn to your right, you can see the main door here. You'll see we have an opportunity here for signage. City of Brooklyn. This door here leads you back into the council chambers, which we'll take a look at. And this window down here is the clerk of courts. So again, you walk in and it's very clear you have certain places you can go. And then this is the connectivity between the main public lobby of City Hall into the police lobby, which will have similar treatment to what you see here on the clerk of courts. So if you're coming down the stairs, this kind of gives you a full view across the lobby. It is long and thin, so it's a little hard to walk you straight in the door and see the images. But you can see we've got a nice vertical element here. You've got a lot of opportunities for public artwork, community signage. Excuse me. The entrance to the council chambers are these two doors right here. So when you walk in, the heart of the city is right there for the public. And this is standing on the far end of the lobby next to the stair, looking all the way down toward the police side. Again, clear, clean, civic, but not over ornamented or overly traditional. And then going into the council chambers, we're still working on what the seating needs to be, but the rest of the chambers, we'd like to do the wood paneling, the wood veneer paneling around the chambers to give it that warm feeling. A curved dais where council would sit with a nice backdrop. We're looking at potential for a natural stone. This also gives you an opportunity for the city seal to be prominently displayed. And then this is just standing on the other side of the room. It's a very symmetrical room. The ceiling of the room kind of pulls you down to the focal point of council, or when it does serve as the mayor's court, the magistrate. We don't have it rendered here, but there is glass up here on the second floor, so you can see what's going on first floor or second floor of the building in this space. I'll take a quick pause before we go to the finishes. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, just real quick, and you may not have gotten this far, but as far as the technology that's in there for presentations and such, is that in the plan as well? I just want to make sure that's included in there.
Yes, we haven't rendered them in. When we last spoke with the mayor, we're going to look at multiple screens within this room. We do have it. As we spoke before, that we're looking at. Each of you will have a station here for laptops, microphones, video recording equipment, as well as the ability to go live with your presentation. So yes, it's just not in the render.
Yep, that's what I figured. No problem. Thank you. Anyone else on council? Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
I missed seeing an elevator. Did you mention that? I'm sorry.
So we do have an elevator. Let me go look and see if I don't think it's in the lobby renderings. So it's back around the corner over here. You come towards the stair and you can go around the corner. Actually, I think it's this gray square you can kind of see through. We don't show it, but it is here. So it's like just back around the corner. So what that does is it forces anyone coming in who has an appointment, especially on the second floor, to stop at your reception desk here so that you know you have visitors, and then they get a clear direction as to where to go.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So I realize this is just a rendering and it's not exact, but I just want to make sure that we end up with enough permanent seating for our directors and chiefs where they have their own microphone. I know we talked about that before.
Yes, so they would be over here on the side. There's 5 on this side and 5 on the opposite side, yes.
Okay, and then we're going to have the automated recording equipment for the meetings?
Yes, that's the intent. I'll verify. We'll get some more details on the systems that are being specified.
Okay, I just want to make sure because typically it's in the ceiling, correct?
It could be in the ceiling. We've also seen it. It can do a lot of things. They're pretty good at hiding them anymore, actually.
Okay, thank you.
I will verify the details of that.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, Robin, I just want to say again, that exterior, can we see that again? Or are you still going for more?
I have one more just to show you the
Yeah, go right ahead. I just want to see that. I just want to see that exterior again. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we'll circle back to that. But just so you can see the proposed finished palettes. So this is for the lobby. So that tile you saw, we're looking at, it is a porcelain tile, but it looks more like a natural stone. So we go with the porcelain because of the durability, but it will give you a little bit more natural appearance. The main color of the building is white on most of the walls, especially the lobby, with accents of a deep, rich kind of brown. The wood accents for the lobby, and you'll see this again in the council chambers, is this really gorgeous wood. All of our designers have fallen in love with it. And then the countertops would be a solid surface, so they have a little bit of a stone look to them, but they are solid surface. They're more durable. They don't require maintenance. If there's a little scratch, you can buff it out. They're very good for civic buildings. So then the council chambers, it's a similar palette where we have our solid surface countertops. The wood, this would be the wood paneling all around the room. It's kind of the mid honey tone. It really will stand the test of time. Very appropriate for the space. Above that, we'll look at a wall covering just to give a little texture. As I said, we're behind the feature wall, behind the dais. We're looking at a natural stone. We also have some other options with actually porcelain tiles, so we can get it to be exactly what we want it to be, and provide that great backdrop for council. We'd look for a textured, dark toned carpet to allow for wear, for ease of maintenance, but still feel to the right level of appropriateness for the space. And then throughout the office areas, we'll repeat similar materials. We're looking at wood doors on the interior for the office, for the city hall, building department offices. These are not the exact same wood as council chambers, but they are similar, and they're well within the budget that we have. You can see we'll repeat the tile from the lobby and the restrooms. The restrooms will have some blue tones, just to give us a little punch of color. Where we have kind of back of house spaces or workrooms, we have a luxury vinyl tile. It's called LVT. It's very durable and it has great texture to it. It doesn't require polishing like the VCT you're probably familiar with. It's very durable, very low maintenance. Cabinetry, we're looking at a plastic laminate. It's a little hard to see on here. This is a wood grain. It's just very dark, very classic, again, with the solid surface countertops. And then we have another flooring on here. This is for the fitness room for the police. It is a rubber flooring so that when they drop their weights, we don't dent anything. And just so you can see, these are just to show the full palette across the building. While each of the areas has some distinct features, we have coordinated it throughout. So it is one cohesive facility. These colors will carry through even into the jail. We'll probably end up with this mid-tone tan for doors. So it will feel like, even though we've got a whole bunch of different building uses in the facility, it will feel like one cohesive city.
Very good.
And
Any
do you
questions?
want to say questions before the exterior?
Any questions on that? Yeah, it's a good start. It looks great. I like it a lot.
Do you have renderings of the other spaces in City Hall yet?
No, we don't typically render every space. It's just time consuming.
But we will put finishes in that.
Yeah, we will update what we've shown you today, the main public spaces with these finishes.
So there's no other renderings at this time?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Kev.
On the exterior where they did the windows on the corner there, the white brick. Yeah, that's it. I always look for darker surfaces because I know white dirties. If you look at the other City Hall, I don't know if you want to call that mildew running down or black marks running down the brick of the old City Hall. I think it's mildew, but I don't know. I guess we'd have to check it out. Is there some kind of, and I know they do this, either a coating or something that goes in the brick where it's mildew proof, where it will stop anything from adhering to that brick?
But there is actually an additive that could put in to help with that. But the best thing you have going for you is this is a south facade and an east facade. So it tends to dry a lot quicker. And where you start to get that staining and that film that starts to grow on the exterior of a building, it's usually on the north facade where it's hard to dry it out. And sometimes on the east and the west. So maintenance is going to be required. It's like in every building. But certainly I don't think you're going to get that staining that you're talking about anytime soon.
Because white, lighter colors, I should say, shows a lot more than the rest of that back of that building because it's brown, dark, it's darker color. So that white's right up front. That's why I was asking about that coating. Because I know
so we'll also take a look at, you can apply a sealer on masonry and cultured stone. So we'll take a look at that and see if that's appropriate for this application.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
like with my church, I know we've done tuck pointing and cleaning and all this, and I think there's 1 or 2 sealers with brick finishes. It's like it's recommended every 7 or 10 years to do it. And then when you do the sealer, if you do it to an area that hasn't been done compared to one that has, if it's raining, you can see the rain run off. Where it's not been done, it just kind of sits there and absorbs into it. So yeah, that's definitely a thing that you're going to have to do every 7, 10 years, something, I'd say.
Well, now don't confuse this with concrete block or CMU is
right.
Referring to. This is a very dense product.
Okay.
But you're right, it can still happen. Buildings get dirty, there's no avoiding that.
All right. And then Robin, are you guys gonna or can we have these made into like boards that can be displayed at City Hall? And then are these gonna be, Mayor, are these gonna be put on our website? Because if this is the final design for the outside, I think people would like to see this. I mean, I think this looks 1,000 times better than what the first one is, and no knock on whoever came up with the first one, but I like this a lot better. I like the glass. It looks very professional, I guess is the best way to describe it. It looks very, very nice. So are we gonna start promoting this and showing it to people, or are we just still kind of in the working phase on this?
Yeah, I mean, I could get the images from Robin. Like she said, we just went over this last week. We've been going back and forth on exterior updates, and internally we said we like these and to push these forward. So we could put this out in our next newsletter, and of course display it at City Hall when they have a chance to print a board.
Yeah, I think it speaks well to the process, and I think it'd be good for everyone to see it. I mean, of course, if people watch the meeting, they can see it, but I think right now we have one person doing this meeting, so I'm not sure we're going to have a ton of people that see it through this venue. So great job, Robin and team. It looks the outside looks awesome, and the inside does too. I'm looking forward to seeing everything finished.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else that I see that Jason is on here? Is there anything else that you need to add, Jason or Robin, or is there anything else you need to add?
I'll just do a quick update. We have been working with Panzica to start the early site package. There should be some movement you'll see on site relate in front of the recreation center. I know a trailer is supposed to be put down in the coming days as well. So right now we're waiting on some delivery of some storm structures, and then more construction activity will start to take place.
All right, very good. Are we still on schedule for October for the start of the building itself?
We are. We're working with Robin now that we've got approval here with the design. We've got some upcoming submissions that are coming up with 90% documentation, and we'll get some updated pricing related to that. So
awesome. All right. Very good. Anything else, Robin or Jason or Mayor? Anyone?
Nothing here, Ron.
Okay, Council, do you have any other questions for any of these folks?
No, just great job. I think it's going to be a really nice presence on Memphis there.
Yeah, look good. So, okay.
I think the word that Robin used was stately, and I would definitely describe that as very stately.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I like it a lot. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I think that's all we have. All right. Have a blessed evening.